Welcome to Live Without a Car, the show where we talk about everything from the logistics of living without a car to the financial savings and lifestyle benefits. I'm Amanda, and I have lived without a car for nearly a decade in Portland, Oregon. I'm also an economist and your host. And today's episode asks the difficult question, is it always cheaper to live without a car in the US? If you are curious about living without a car in order to save money, this podcast is for you. Saving money was a huge motivator for me to give up my car 10 years ago. But after doing the math, I learned that if I wasn't careful, I could actually end up spending more to live in a walkable city like Portland than I would if I continued to live in the suburbs of Florida with a car. So today, I want to walk you through how to compare cost of living in different cities realistically and how to avoid the biggest budgeting mistakes people make when they're planning a big lifestyle change. Now, if you are looking to stay in the same city and simply ditch your car, then yes, we can assume with a high level of certainty that you would save money. Unfortunately, as we talked about in our last episode, most cities in America are not friendly to those without a car. So most people will need to move to a different city to make this lifestyle not just possible, but comfortable as well. So let's dive into the 5 steps of analyzing a city's true cost of living. Step 1. Name a city you are interested in living in and find out just how easy it is to live without a car. You can refer to Storage Cafe's ranking of 177 best and worst cities, which we covered in our last podcast. I will link the site again down below in the episode notes. This list is extremely valuable as a starting place, but your individual lifestyle will ultimately determine how easy or hard it is to ditch your car. If you work remotely, are single without children, and don't go out often, you may find that you can live in a less walkable city and be just fine without a car. So use the list as a guide rather than gospel. If you find a city doesn't have any public transit or any rideshare options, that is a clue that living without a car there might indeed be impossible. Step 2. Once you have a city in mind, the next step is to compare overall cost of living in both places. For a super high level analysis of cost of living, you can head over to resources like NerdWallet, Bankrate, MIT's Living Wage Calculator, Nimbio, or just Google cost of living in different cities. Type in both your existing city and your desired city. But one word of warning, while I do find these sites very valuable, they often provide averages and may be out of date. For example, all sites would suggest that Orlando was far cheaper to live in Portland in 2016, and I agree. However, my cost of living actually went down for a variety of reasons. For one, my employer subsidized my monthly TriMet public transit pass, meaning I went from having all of these car expenses to paying nearly $0 on transportation costs. Also, I was willing to live in an apartment that was 50% of the square footage I had in Orlando for the same rent. Lastly, I was moving from a very touristy city to one more focused on outdoor recreation. My monthly entertainment expenses dropped dramatically. So like step 1, do your own research and keep in mind you can still live cheaply in a more expensive city by considering in detail things like housing costs, transit costs, insurance, and everyday expenses like groceries, eating out, utilities, etc. Step 3, let's talk taxes. They can be a huge part of your daily life. When looking at different areas to live, you must consider things like state income tax rates, county tax rates, sales taxes, and property taxes for home ownership. In my personal case, I moved from a state that had 0 state income tax, Florida, to one that had one of the highest state income tax brackets in the country, Oregon. In contrast, Florida has sales tax while Oregon does not. And in 2016, housing prices were drastically lower in Florida than Oregon, although that gap has narrowed dramatically post-pandemic. When all is said and done, giving up your car may cost you more if you choose a state with high tax rates. In my case, it was still cheaper to move because of the savings from car ownership, but that is not always the case. Step 4, calculate your existing car expenses or the cost of future car expenses if you are thinking about buying a new car soon. You may find that you don't actually need that new car if you live in a more walkable city. When you're thinking about giving up your car, one of the first things you do is calculate what your car costs you today. Your car payment, insurance, gas, repairs, parking, all of it. Then imagine a life where all of those expenses just disappear. Feels good, right? I have touched a gas nozzle at a gas station maybe 2 or 3 times in 10 years instead of 2 or 3 times every single week, and I have no regrets. Step 5. Now that we've looked at expenses, let's talk income. We all know that you can likely fetch a higher salary in New York City than you can in, say, rural Alabama. Income matters too. Shockingly, when I moved to Portland, I had a job offer lined up with a slightly less salary. This made it very easy for me to know exactly how much money I was really saving. Although Portland has a higher cost of living, according to all sites, I was getting paid less than in Florida. Again, there is no substitute for knowing your individual circumstances. There is one source of data that makes it glaringly clear that walkable cities often come with a higher cost of living. The list of most expensive cities in the US in 2025, done by Visual Capitalist, shows this. If you listen to our last podcast, you'll notice that of the top 10 cities to live without a car, at least 2 cities on Visual Capitalist list overlaps with the most walkable cities list done by Storage Cafe. There is research showing that cities that are easier to get around without a car have higher property values and a higher cost of living. So what happens if you go through this exercise, all 5 steps, only to find out that giving up your car and moving to your dream city will cost you more money? Now you have to ask yourself the most important question of all. Is money your only motivation? Or do you care about other things like quality of life, getting your time back, being more active, etc.? So to answer the question posed in the title of this podcast, no, it is not always cheaper to live without a car in the US. If you're considering a move to a more transit-friendly and walkable city, take the time to compare the whole cost of living, not just one piece of it. And most importantly, know your why. In my case, saving money was one piece of my motivation. I struggled with motion sickness my entire life, and the idea of not being reliant on a car was one of my biggest motivators. Also, living a life where fitness was built into my daily routine instead of something I had to plan for was big as well. So I encourage you to make a list of all the reasons why you want to live without a car. If enough matter to you, you may be on your way to a new way of life. Thanks for listening to Live Without a Car. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, walk slowly and enjoy the scenery.